Welcome to the Style Made Simple by Dressen's channel, your one-stop fashion academy that allows you to learn in the easiest of ways how to cut out your outfits without patterns and also how to assemble them in a very professional manner. Now, these diagrams have been designed to help you, the students, get acquainted to stitching correctly, the stitching techniques, and also for the manipulation of fabrics. Just as we learned how to scribble and write our alphabets in kindergarten and nursery, it's the same process we're going to be using for learning how to stitch correctly and acquiring all the stitching techniques. So our fabric for our project is ready. You can use any plain colored fabric, but just make sure whatever piece you are going to cut will be in double piece. So as you can see, I've doubled the fabric. Now I'm going to cut out a 5 by 5 piece. 5 by 5 means 5 inches across and then 5 inches down. So now I'm going to measure my 5 inches from the end here and then mark it, and then measure 5 inches from that point downwards, mark that one again, and then another 5 inches here and then mark it. So I'm going to have a straight line and then a straight line here. That's our 5 by 5 for us. So I'm going to be cutting it out now. As you can see, you cut out with large strokes. So that's done. I have cut out my piece now. As you can see, like I said, it's a double piece. You always sew on double material. So we are ready for our diagrams now. The first diagram is a straight stitch. So you're going to be ruling your straight lines. Make sure the lines are faint, not too deep, and then you leave half-inch interval in between the lines. Fill out the space, and then you are good to go. So you're going to stitch on the line so would be conversant with stitching straight. Now what this diagram is going to help us do is to maintain a straight line of stitch from one point to the other, because the neatness of whatever work you're going to do counts. Once you start working the machine and you start stitching, you should be able to maintain a straight line. So this diagram is going to aid you to be able to get through stitching your straight lines correctly. So let's get started. The first thing, once you've threaded, you've threaded your machine is ready. You put your fabric under the machine now. And then, like I said, you always start with a back stitch. You reinforce the beginning of the stitch, and then when you get to the end, you also reinforce. So you just make sure you go over the line slowly, and then when you get to the end, you back stitch and then pull the work out. Now before you pull the work out of the fabric, make sure the thread pickup lever is high, your needle is at its highest point. You pull the work out and then trim very close to the work. Don't trim the thread midway. You trim midway, you have to trim again. So you just trim it close to the work once and for all, and then you also trim the other part of the thread. So that's what we're going to be doing for the rest of the lines. you reinforce your stitch, and then you reinforce at the end. So you just need to be patient with yourself and just go over and over the lines gently, and make sure you are actually stitching on the marked line and not outside the marked line. So there we go again. So that does it. We are done with our first diagram. So that's it. This is the finished work for our first diagram. This is a finished work for our first diagram. We are moving on to the second one. Now this is going to be our second diagram that we are going to stitch. Now what this diagram is going to teach us is, initially we did the straight lines. It's all straight lines, but then we have corners here. We have a corner here, and then we have a corner here. So what this diagram is going to teach us is how to turn the corners. The turning at the corner is called pivoting. So this assignment or this project is going to teach us how to pivot at points during stitching, and then still maintain our straight line. So that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, so we have our 5 by 5 ready, like what we used for the first diagram. We're going to be outlining our lines to do our pivoting. So you have one straight line here, and then you have another straight line downwards here. So when you have this line and this line, now you connect the two lines at this angle. So this is what we are going to be getting. So you repeat the process all over again. So you just do your connection, and then you're done with it. It shouldn't be too difficult. So again, you go over, and then we're going to go over again, over and over again. Same diagram, and then you connect. So this is what we have, and so we are going to go through the process of stitching again. You begin your stitch by reinforcing it. You go straight to your point of pivoting. Once you get to your point of pivoting, you let the needle stay in the material. Let the needle stay in the material. That means the needle should be pinned to the material, or should be pinned into the material. You raise your presser foot up, and then you turn your fabric. So all this should be done with the needle stuck in the fabric, else you're going to shift the turning position. So you lift the presser foot up and then you turn and then break the presser foot down and then continue your stitching. This time you are not going to back stitch because it's still a continuous stitch from point A to point B. We are not yet at point B. Again, we are going to do the same pivoting here. So up goes the presser foot. With the needle still stuck in the fabric, you pivot and then you continue your stitch until you get to the end. So that's it. And then now you pull your work out and then trim. So we are almost through with our work. Almost through with our work. And that does it for our project on pivoting. Now our next assignment is this shape. It is neither a complete curve nor a straight line. It is just a shallow curve. So this assignment or this project is also to aid you to control the fabric, because there's a bit of turning which is different from what we did for the pivoting. This turning comes as you are sewing. You are turning the fabric slightly so you can get a slight curve. So you are stitching a line, but it's also a curve at the same time. So that's what our next assignment is going to be. Okay, so we have our fabric ready. We have our pencil or our tailor's chalk ready, and then you need a ruler for this, and then you also need a part of the French curve or anything with a slightly curved area. So first of all, you would want to divide the fabric into two like this. So you'd have the portion for the first curve and then the second portion for the second curve. Now I'm going to be using this part of the French curve, this part of the curve to get me my shallow curve. And so I'm going to be placing it on the fabric like this, and then create my curve, connect from here also, and then create my curve. So you repeat the process until you fill out the fabric. Like I said, the French curves aid us to work effectively. So these can be obtained at any local haberdashery shop near you. It will really help you in your project, so you don't waste time trying to create a perfect curve. Once you have the edge that would give you the shape you want, you just place it on the work, and then you're good to go. Under normal circumstances, I'm not supposed to use pencil on the fabric. I should have used a tailor's chalk. And then number two, the markings shouldn't have been this deep. But for presentation purposes, so you guys can really see what I am doing, that is why I am using a pencil, number one, and that is why my diagrams are a bit deep, so you can see the shapes properly. So this is what we got for our diagram, and I'm also using contrasting colored thread for the work, so for presentation purposes you can get the viewing correctly. So let's get started. Back to the starting point, you backstitch, but this time you're supposed to work the machine slowly because it's a curve. So as you stitch, you manipulate the fabric and get the curve. You get to your point here, you pivot, and then you continue with your curve gently. This is not the time where you want to test your speed on the machine. You want to go gently because it's a curve. There's no sense in stitching a curved area speedily, because if you do that, you're not going to be getting the stitches on the outline. You're going to be stitching outside your shape, and that would not help you. So you want to go slowly until you get to the middle. You leave your needle in and then you pivot. Continue until you get to the end. So you're going to be repeating that process throughout until you get to the very end. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please hit the notification button so you'll be alerted when So there goes the last one, and then we are good to go. We're done. So this is what we got for our second, I think this is our third diagram or our fourth diagram. So this is diagram number 4. This is a lot of curving. It has a lot of curves. So this is what we are going to be doing for our assignment, our project number 4. So we want to space out our piece into 3 portions so we can position the work properly. So you just go freely with your hands and just create your curves gently. It's just like what we learned in kindergarten or nursery. So you have to go back to your first copybook, how we used to scribble. So now we are going to scribble, and then we are going to sew out what we have scribbled. Now we have our third diagram. And then we are ready to go. So with this we are going to be very slow on the machine. Like I said, you can't speed up in the sewing process when you are stitching a curved area. Everything has to move slowly. So let's get started. Don't forget, you have to reinforce, and this time you have to work the machine gently, so you can, as you are stitching, you turn the work, you turn it gently so you can get your curve. It's a bit tricky, but like I said, it's practice. It's meant to get you familiar with stitching techniques. So the benefits outweigh the efforts put into it. You're going to gain a lot when you start your project. So there you have it. Once you get here, it's slow traffic for you. You have to just be patient with yourself, and then remember, for each stitch you keep turning the fabric. You have to turn, you have to turn. Then from here onwards, you can speed up a bit, speed up a bit. And then we go. We no more edit so So that's it. We're going to repeat the process here, and then that will be it. So we are done with the last line. We've done the first line, the second line, and the third line. We are done. So we are moving on to the next one. This is diagram number 5, our last but one diagram. And as you can see, it is all about our corners. So we are going to be doing a lot of pivoting. We have a pivoting point here. All over the work, we are going to do a lot of pivoting throughout. So it's pretty simple. So you're going to start from the middle, creating your line, and then you just keep turning and then lengthening your diagram. Make sure the intervals in between are equal. So as you keep turning, the diagram becomes bigger, and so we just keep turning and lengthening the lines you are drawing, and then you make sure you maintain equal allowances in between. So this is what it's looking like at the moment, and we are done. So this is what we have at the moment. This is what we are going to work with. For starting, you can decide to start at the outer edge or at the inner edge. Whichever way, it's going to work perfectly fine. So I am going to start from the outer edge. So reinforced pivot. Now this should be easy than the previous ones because it's just straight lines. Another pivot point. And then there we go again. Another pivot. And so we are just going to follow the lines and pivots until we get to the end. So there we have it, the finished work of our pivoting square. So that's done. Now this is our last diagram. That's our spiral. a spiral. It's just curvy from the inner circle. We are just going to curve and go round and round and round and round and round until we get to the outer edge. So again, I'm going to be starting from the middle, creating my coil, and so I just go round and make sure the allowances I'm leaving in between are equal. There's no timing on you, so just take your time and get a perfect curve, or you can still use your tape. If you want to do a perfect job, you use your tape and mark out your ½ inch interval around, and then you connect your points. So as you connect, you keep marking. So whichever is easier for you, you just go for it. You keep marking your points until you are through with the spiral. So you keep connecting, you keep connecting, you keep connecting, you keep connecting, and as you keep connecting, the coil becomes bigger. So that's it. Just like the previous assignment, you can either start from the middle or start from the outer edge. This time I want to start from the inner edge and work it out towards the outer edge. So we're going to start from the center, little back stitch, and then you want to set your machine set the stitch regulator at the minimum, at a small stitch, 0.2, because you don't want the stitches to be big. The stitches should be small, so the machine can move slowly, and then you can do your turning, because it's going to be a lot of slow work here. So as you can see, I'm pivoting, but this time I'm not creating a corner. I'm pivoting to create a curve. So I just continue with, I stitch a bit, raise the presser foot up, and then turn. And even as I stitch, I continue turning. In the stitching process, I'm still turning, so I can get my coil well rounded. Let me get this thing out of the way. Okay, so I'm continuing with the stitching process, and so I'm going to be going round in that slow manner, round and round and round, until I get to the end. So we are done. This is what we have at the end of the day. So thank you for watching. And so this